Nobody tells you this, but your life is secretly being controlled by psychological traps you never agreed to. Not by fate, not by luck, by invisible mental shortcuts that decide who respects you, who ignores you, and who gets ahead without trying. The shocking part: your brain is designed to work against you when you don't understand these rules. Every hesitation, every over-explanation, every time you chase approval, it quietly rewires how others see you. Once you notice it, everything feels uncomfortable, because you'll realize most people aren't struggling harder than you. They're just playing by rules you were never taught. And the moment these rules click, life stops feeling heavy. Here's the dark truth psychology confirms: people don't respond to effort, they respond to perception. The less you chase, the more valuable you appear. The calmer you stay, the more power you're given. Your brain craves certainty, so it obeys whoever seems most grounded, even if they know less than you. Silence creates authority. Scarcity creates desire, and emotional control makes you untouchable. Master these psychological facts and doors open without force. Conversations shift in your favor, and stress loses its grip on you. Miss them, and life keeps demanding more effort for smaller results. If this opened your eyes, subscribe now before your mind forgets what it just learned. Nobody warns you about this. Your life isn't hard because you're weak, unlucky, or missing something important. It's hard because your mind has been quietly running on hidden psychological rules you were never taught. Rules that decide who gets respect, who gets ignored, and who seems to move forward while others stay stuck. The scary part? These rules are active right now. Every thought you have, every pause before you speak, every time you try to prove yourself. Once you become aware of them, you can't unsee them, and that awareness alone starts changing everything. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never realize. Effort doesn't create power. Perception does. The human brain is wired to follow confidence, not competence. That's why people who know less than you often control rooms you belong in. The more you explain yourself, the smaller you appear. The more emotional you get, the less seriously you're taken. Your brain thinks it's protecting you, but it's actually training others to underestimate you. Psychology shows that people don't respect those who chase. They respect those who choose. The moment you stop seeking approval, your value silently increases. Distance creates curiosity. Silence creates authority. When you're always available, your brain signals low importance without you realizing it. That's why pulling back feels terrifying, yet instantly shifts how people treat you. Your discomfort is proof the pattern is breaking. Another disturbing fact: your brain obeys whoever appears calm under pressure. Not the smartest, not the loudest, the calmest. Emotional control triggers a deep survival instinct in others. They assume you have resources, confidence, and hidden power. That's why staying unbothered is more threatening than arguing. People can't read you, and what they can't read, they can't control. Your mind is also addicted to certainty, even when certainty is harmful. It would rather stay in familiar pain than face unknown freedom. That's why you delay decisions, overthink opportunities, and settle for less than you want. Not because you're lazy, but because your brain fears change more than regret. Once you understand this, fear loses its authority over your choices. And here's the part that changes everything. Once you learn these psychological facts, life stops requiring force. Conversations shift. Respect appears. Stress loses its grip. You start moving differently, and people respond without knowing why. This is only the beginning. Keep watching, because what comes next will explain how to use these rules without becoming someone you don't recognize. Nobody prepares you for this truth. Your life isn't exhausting because you're doing something wrong. It's exhausting because your mind has been quietly following psychological rules designed to keep you small, compliant, and predictable. Rules that shape how people judge you within seconds. Rules that decide who gets listened to and who gets overlooked. Every time you hesitate, every time you over-explain, every time you doubt yourself. These moments aren't harmless, they're signals. And once you notice them, it becomes impossible to ignore how much power they've been stealing from you. Here's the uncomfortable psychological fact most people never hear. Humans don't respond to truth, they respond to certainty. Confidence rewires perception faster than skill ever could. That's why louder voices dominate rooms and calmer minds control outcomes. Your brain thinks staying agreeable keeps you safe, but psychology shows the opposite. It slowly trains others to underestimate you. The more you try to be understood, the less authority you project. And the more emotional energy you give away, the less control you have left. Another dark pattern at play is approval addiction. Your brain craves acceptance so deeply that it will sabotage your own interests just to avoid rejection. Chasing validation lowers your perceived value without you noticing. Distance, on the other hand, creates intrigue. Silence builds weight. When you stop reacting instantly, people lean in. What feels like pulling back is actually your power returning to you. Psychology also reveals something disturbing about calmness. The person least affected emotionally is seen as the most powerful, not because they care less, but because emotional regulation triggers respect at a primal level. When you remain unbothered under pressure, people assume you have leverage, options, and confidence. They listen differently. They speak carefully. Emotional control isn't passive, it's dominance without noise. And here's where everything begins to shift. Once you recognize these hidden mental rules, life stops feeling like constant resistance. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop proving yourself. Your presence changes before your circumstances do. This isn't the end. It's the setup. Because next we'll break down how to use these psychological truths without losing your authenticity or becoming someone you don't recognize. Nobody ever tells you this. Your life feels heavy not because you lack discipline or motivation, but because your mind has been operating under invisible psychological rules that quietly drain your power. Rules that decide how people perceive you before you even speak. Rules that reward calm certainty and punish emotional effort. Every time you explain yourself too much, every time you react too fast, every time you chase clarity instead of letting silence speak. These aren't small habits, they're signals. And once you see them, you realize how much control you've been giving away without noticing. Here's the disturbing psychological truth. People don't follow logic, they follow energy. The brain instinctively trusts whoever appears most grounded, not most knowledgeable. That's why silence feels uncomfortable, yet creates authority. Distance feels risky, yet increases value. Emotional restraint feels unnatural, yet commands respect. Your brain wants safety through approval, but psychology shows approval. Seeking slowly erodes influence. The moment you stop chasing reactions, people start watching you differently. This is where everything begins to change. When you understand these mental rules, life stops demanding force. Conversations shift. Tension dissolves. You move with intention instead of urgency, and people respond without knowing why. This is just the foundation, because in the next video, we'll break down how to apply these psychological facts step by step in real life. Subscribe now, and don't miss what comes next.